I watched my first investment die in real time. $12,000. Gone in 6 hours. I saw the number dropping, knew something was wrong, and just sat there.
How does that happen? You could see it going down. Why didn't you just sell?
Because by that point, I wasn't making decisions anymore. Around 17 days after your first buy, your brain writes a story where you win, spends the profit, tells people. And once that story is written, it defends itself against everything, including the truth right in front of you.
So by the time the numbers go wrong, you're not even watching the investment anymore. You're watching the story.
And defending it. The red flags were always there. Before you bought, during, the whole time. You just couldn't see them because your brain had already decided how it ends.
So the real mistake is the story you told yourself on day one.
The decision to fail is almost always made before the money moves, in that first moment of excitement, when you feel certain. And certainty in investing isn't confidence, it's a blindfold. I had a friend, Raj, physics PhD, one of the sharpest people I've known, put 80,000 into Tesla calls in 2021. I asked him, "What if you're wrong?" He smiled, said Elon doesn't fail. 3 months later, he was driving Uber Eats at 11 at night to cover rent.
And he could see it going wrong the whole time, but held anyway.
Held, doubled down, convinced himself it was temporary, because admitting he was wrong meant something about him. That's when it stops being about money and starts being about identity, and you cannot protect your ego and manage money at the same time.
So how do you separate them? Because the fear doesn't just disappear when you get more experienced.
Never disappears. When a position goes red, your chest tightens, your hands change, you stop seeing numbers and start seeing every person you told you were good at this. That version of you, panicking at midnight, is not capable of good decisions. So you pull out the note you wrote before you bought. The one that says, if it hits this number, I'm out. No exceptions. You follow the note, not your feelings.
A note you wrote when you were still calm, before any of it started.
That version of you is always smarter than the one watching red numbers. Write down how much you're willing to lose before you accept you were wrong. Before you buy. Non-negotiable. Because a bad pick with that number loses you money. A bad pick without it loses you everything. The pick was never the problem. The missing limit was.
I didn't have a number my first time. I thought I'd just feel when it was time to get out.
Everyone thinks that. But in that moment, you're not feeling clearly. You're just feeling. Instincts come from being wrong dozens of times in small ways. On your first investment, you don't have instincts yet. You just have feelings dressed up as instincts. The market doesn't care about your feelings. It only cares about your limits. Without a number, you're not investing. You're hoping. And hope isn't a strategy. It's a liability.
So what happens to people who never write it down?
They lose. Feel stupid. Tell nobody. Quietly delete the app. And spend the next 10 years posting, the system is rigged online. Not because it's true, because it's easier than saying, I didn't understand myself well enough yet. Most of them were smart enough to figure it out. They just needed one more small survivable loss. Instead, they took one unsurvivable one and never came back.
So the first investment failing, it was never really about the investment.
Never. The investment isn't the test. Your reaction is. Can you look at a red number and ask, what does this tell me? Instead of, what does this say about me? That shift is the exact moment a person stops gambling and starts investing. Because nobody told them losing was the lesson. They thought they were supposed to win. So when they lost, they assumed they were in the wrong class. They weren't. They were exactly where they needed to be. They just didn't know it. But you do now.
And most people never make it because the shame gets there first.
So write the number down, before anything else, before you pick the stock, before you read another article. Sit down, be honest, and write the number that means, I was wrong, and I'm okay.
And then?
Go make your second investment.
What about the first one?
You already made it. Now you know something you didn't before. That's worth more than the money.
Is it?
Only one way to find out.